Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week, and we are in a new month. It is May. The weather doesn't tell you it's May, but you'd think it was actually the spring, possibly even the summer, and we've got a brand new team in for this month, and it is of course Mark Dolan, the Talk Radio Drive Time host extraordinaire, and Emily Carver's back as well, economics expert, woman of many talents, and I'm very, very glad to see you both because we've been stuck in this kind of situation where we couldn't get anybody into the building. Obviously we could get you into the building, but we were going with Kevin O'Sullivan and Dawn Neeson, and we just decided to keep it like that for a while. But now that the shackles are off, we're allowed to rotate. So don't worry, Kevin and Dawn will be back. But for today, it's you guys, and so I'm very glad to see you.
Quite a lot of pressure.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, don't worry, this is not a competitive game.
Am I Kevin or Dawn? That's the question.
Would you like to kick us off, Mark, given that you're so confused?
Yes, I'd like to offer as Plank of the Week, Exhibit A, Dominic Raab.
Yes.
Who is hardly a barrel of laughs at the best of time. But this government are past masters now at turning a good news story into a bad news story. We have, as we well know, this wonderful vaccine rollout. The most recent statistic that I've seen about tragic COVID deaths is 1 in the whole of the UK, and of course that's very sad.
Yes.
But in a population of 67 million, it's not...
Do we have to keep saying that, do you think?
Well,
do we have to caveat it?
Well, sad. I think you do. I think you do, because it's true. We've never enjoyed, these statistics about cancer, about COVID, about any disease. But the bottom line is, in terms of priority, COVID now should be rock bottom. And yet, doing the rounds of the Sunday morning interview shows, Dominic Raab has pricked the air out of the balloon. This is just as outdoor hospitality has got going. People are enjoying a pint in their local, in the beer garden. They've been to Primark and bought 57 t-shirts, each for like a couple of quid. And it's like, okay, this is what the original like old-fashioned way of living used to be. And it's going to be snatched from us. So his terrible, terrible hint was that some restrictions may continue after June the 21st.
Yeah. And do you think he actually knows whether they are or not?
Well,
I don't think he does.
My view is that, he kind of let slip. I don't think he let slip at all, because Dominic Raab is not an improvisational sort of character. This is clearly a government message which he has been there to kind of deliver, and we're being softened up for more restrictions after June the 21st.
He's also, the most troubling thing about Dominic Raab is he's been pictured wearing a vest. I don't know why he's wearing a vest. I think it's got something to do with karate, but I mean, my version of karate is you wear kind of a white jacket, don't you? Don't you wear like a suit with a belt?
Well, why is he wearing it?
Well, he's in like a team picture of some kind when he's a bit younger, and he's wearing a vest, and it's not a white vest. It's like a really weird. I mean, I don't trust men that wear vests.
Like a string vest.
It's not quite that bad.
No, but normally the reason why men wear vests is to show off their amazing muscly arms.
I think that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, but he's got a figure similar to mine. He's closer to me than Arnold Schwarzenegger, old Raab.
Yeah.
And
well, that's reason enough to be Plank of the Week.
The two types of people that could justify a vest would be Arnold Schwarzenegger, a bodybuilder, or Rab C. Nesbitt.
Yeah, or somebody in a race, maybe, because that's fine. But he wasn't in a race, and he was just standing there.
He'll allow it at the Olympics, that's it.
The Olympics you can wear a vest.
Well, I tell you what, there's still talk that one day Dominic Raab might be a candidate to lead the Conservative Party and become Prime Minister, at which point I will definitely emigrate.
Yes.
But in the meantime, look, it's a really, really depressing moment, because we are tasting freedom. We're looking forward to, we've had that carrot of the 21st of June dangled in front of us for so long. Now, I feel that all restrictions should be lifted straight away, given the fact that the current restrictions are still damaging lives and impacting the economy, and it's the economy that pays for public health. So in the end, you're going to kill more people and you're going to wreck more lives if you don't lift the restrictions. The problem we've got now is this very idea, this narrative that there'll be some low-level restrictions into the summer. And the bottom line is that if we're not going to be free after June, I don't think we ever will be.
No.
Well, the thing is, the default should be freedom. Any sort of restriction or freedom, even a COVID marshal, needs to be justified by data, in my view, and it simply isn't. So it should just be.
And there isn't any evidence at all that would suggest that there's any problem going inside a pub. Even Sage have actually said that there's very, very little chance of you catching COVID inside a pub. We've got now pubs which are having to shut down again because all their stuff got blown away yesterday, particularly up in the north of England, where it was hailing. There was guys sitting outside a pub in Skipton in the snow, like nursing his pipe, refusing to leave. The great British bulldog spirit. But, people can't operate like this. There's no difference. What's the difference going into a pub in 2 weeks' time or going into one today? How's it going to be any different?
That's right. And social distancing has to end, because hospitality is not basically it's no business model for any pub to have social distancing.
Right.
At the moment, they're not even breaking even. And when they open indoors, they will possibly eke out a small profit, but it won't be what it was before the pandemic. And the problem is now, as we exit this pandemic, a lot of these businesses are carrying more debt because they've borrowed money to keep going. They've had bounce back loans. They've also probably privately borrowed cash too. So in the end, it's all got to stop on the 21st of June. We've got to move on. And you know that adage, learn to live with this virus. We're endlessly hearing about new variants.
Yeah.
And of course it's a concern. But if the vaccine is so inefficient that it's not going to protect against new variants.
It is efficient. But we already know it's efficient.
Well, exactly.
And that's the other problem. Boris comes out last couple of weeks ago and said it was all to do with lockdowns. The reason that we're much safer is because I'll tell you why we're much safer. Because most people have now been vaccinated, and 2, it's gone away. Yeah. Because that's what viruses do.
Especially in the spring and summer months.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Totally and utterly ridiculous. And of course, it doesn't help, as I say, that no one in government will make any kind of firm commitment to anything.
Well, you know,
those pictures from the weekend, from yesterday, all those sort of middle-aged women huddled outside underneath these umbrellas just to have their fight.
It's cruel and undignified.
It's so cruel and undignified, yes. But it does show the British spirit, I guess.
It does. No, absolutely does. And people are coming up with some remarkable ways of trying to keep us actually entertained and able to get a drink and something to eat. And it's amazing what they're doing, and they're just having it all shoved in their faces by being told, well, you won't be able to get more. We still don't actually know what the rules are going to be on the 17th of May.
Well, I think the government don't want to take us off the leash, and the reason why we're being softened up for more restrictions after June the 21st is because if they lose all of their mechanisms of control, the symbolism of face coverings, social distancing, the arrows in supermarkets, endless hand sanitizing, if they remove those, they fear that the genie is out of the lamp and they'll never get control again. So once we've tasted complete freedom, then essentially the public won't
as
comply.
Emily says, it's not for them to give us back our freedom, it's for us to take it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's for us to go back to where we are.
I think this summer is a test case for our long-term freedoms. I think if everything isn't lifted in the summer, that's it. We are done with the old normal. It's over.
I'm not as pessimistic as you are. I think we will come out of all of it and it will be as if it was a kind of bad dream. People look back at it and go, do you remember that?
Oh, but what
as long as we don't get rid of Boris and get Matt Hancock in as Prime Minister.
Well, do you know what? I mean, Boris is not doing a job at the moment. He's completely and utterly obsessed with Carrie. He's doing everything that she says just to stay out of trouble. He's like the worst kind of boyfriend, right? Because all he's doing is doing whatever he thinks will keep her happy. And that's his main focus, which includes all sorts of other things.
Well, he wants to keep all the wrong people happy. He wants to.
He should be keeping me happy.
Right. He wants to keep Carrie happy. He wants to keep Matt Hancock happy, and he wants to keep Sage happy. Yeah. He's got all the wrong friends.
He has. And each day that passes, with every kind of utterance that comes out of his mouth, the game's over. I mean, he doesn't seem to have the ability to know what to do. And he seems to just do whatever he's told. And that's not the Boris Johnson that was elected.
What is the alternative, though?
Well,
Dishy
the alternative is Dishy Rishi, actually. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Rishi Sunak would be a great Prime Minister. And he doesn't have to borrow money from people to have a life. You know, that's the other thing.
Well, that is true. That's definitely true.
Boris Johnson cannot even run his own household, if
that's
you
right.
like.
No, I mean, basically, Rishi Sunak is so rich, he can turn the flat at number 11 into Downton Abbey. And still have several million
He can
left.
erect the Taj Mahal in Green Park, Mark II.
Easy.
And build himself a mausoleum.
Yeah, he probably could.
He could. And I mean, I'd much rather have independently wealthy politicians running the country than somebody who literally can't afford a pair of shoes. Because that's what we're being told about Boris, that he hasn't got any money at all. He's been stripped bare. And if you can't live a certain type of lifestyle, you just don't live it.
No, that's exactly right. I think that's why he's taken his eye off the ball during this pandemic. He's been on the phone to Ocean Finance, you know.
Yeah, it does sound like he's like me when I was at university.
Payday loans.
Yeah, trying to sell gold.
Unfortunately, Gordon Brown's already done all that.
Yeah, just a bit.
Got rid of it all. But anyway, listen, so I think Dominic Raab was a very good beginning. Emily, who's your first nominee?
So my first nominee is an institution, Edinburgh University.
Excellent.
I don't know if either of you saw, but it was reported in the Times that they're issuing guidance now to all of their lecturers on transgender issues.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so this is obviously to
Didn't
create...
you used to go there, Mark?
I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they're
I was
more woke
Martha.
than Sainsbury's.
I was Martha at the time. So.
Oh, yes, okay. Yeah. Right, just as well.
Okay, so the list includes what they're telling people to do. So lecturers are to include their preferred pronouns in their email sign-offs.
Is that the he, him thing?
That is the he, him thing, she, her.
So if you're signing Mike Graham at the end of an email, you go he, him. or not?
Yes, so you'd have to do that, yes, because people might not be sure. Or you might cause offence to the one transgender person who might be offended. But it's more likely that other people would be offended on their behalf.
I see.
As we've seen.
Correct.
So yes, pronouns...
Non-trans people.
more
because
likely,
it's never the group. It's never the group
actual people
that's being protected that seeks protection.
No. Why does it have to be he, him, by the way? Why can't it just be him or he?
Well, because they're different pronouns, aren't they? He, him.
He, him.
Subjective, nominative.
Ho-hum.
Oh, I see. Ho-hum. I mean, I would do ho-hum. That would be me. Ho-hum.
Queen. Okay, so that's one of them.
Right.
They also have been told to, or indeed encouraged to, wear rainbow lanyards on campuses.
Yes.
Which I mean is just bloody ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
You know,
Is that
wear
an
wear one if you
LGBT
like.
thing or an NHS thing?
Pardon?
Is that LGBT or is it NHS? Because whenever you see a rainbow now, I'm never quite sure.
Yeah,
that's because
true.
the NHS is LGBT friendly.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So when I see
LGBTQ plus.
Sorry.
when somebody
WZ.
him, when somebody spray paints a rainbow on the road, right? I assume it's something to do with LGBT, but it might be the NHS. And also, why are they spraying it on the road? What's that about?
And they spray a train LGBT, and then
police cars they've done, haven't they?
A number of high-profile gay men and women said, you know what, I don't want a train, splattered in the LGBT flag. I mean, they're quite happy without it being so.
But I've always thought that the blue heart and the rainbow was just a sign that somebody aggressive and toxic was heading your way.
Yeah.
Certainly on Twitter.
What is the blue heart?
I look out. Well, I think that's supporting the NHS, which we clearly all do.
I
want to sell it off to the Americans personally. Obviously.
My problem is that I think any of these monikers are a bad idea. You know, the red rose,
Moniker.
the hearts, it's all really bad. I'm, for example, challenging lockdown, and the lockdown skeptics have got their own sort of pink flower.
Have they?
Whereas they skip all of the symbols.
Why don't I know any of this stuff? I don't know any of these
and the
flowers.
smileys
Oh,
on
yeah,
the other
smiley
side
face,
who are
correct.
fighting back.
Yes.
But the thing is, it's not that people can wear rainbow lanyards. Like,
you
I'm
want
not
to.
a fascist.
Right.
You can wear whatever you like.
Right.
You can put your pronouns in your email signature,
He,
although
him.
I'd probably roll my eyes at it.
You'd be
But
she, her, would you? She, her?
I would be she, her, yes. He's learning quickly.
This is good. Yeah, see, this is good. The plank of the week is also educational.
I'm
Let me
keeping
know.
up Mike with all the woke
Well, what's
woke
they,
trends.
them then? What's they, them?
They, them is for people who are non-binary or don't wish to commit to one gender or
I
the
see.
other.
Okay.
Like Sam Smith.
Like Sam Smith,
Yeah.
yes, who came out as...
I've got some bad news for Sam Smith. He needs to change his name. Otherwise, people are going to assume... Well, I suppose you could be Samantha,
Correct.
like Sam Fox.
He could be, yes.
Yes.
It'd be an easy switch.
It's not easy.
But
is
this
it?
is, you raise a really good point. This is actually the difference between somebody that's maybe quite politically correct, very right on, which is how people used to be, and that was fine. What wokery is, nobody is suggesting that those set of values is necessarily bad, which is to care about equality and to be. It's the policing of other people's wokeness.
Completely.
It's evangelical. It's the way that these people metaphorically go from door to door, enforcing their ideology on you.
It's the new intolerance, isn't it?
Well, that's it, and it's the proactive nature of it, that it's policed and it's very illiberal, and that's the problem.
Well, that's the thing, and even if it's not banned, it essentially is, because you'll be sort of, looked down on, frowned upon, potentially given up for, ostracised by your peers at University of Edinburgh. So I just think these things shouldn't be mandated.
No,
if you want to do it,
they're actually like gangsters.
Well, similar to
it's
that,
like Goodfellas. These people, it's like a gang, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those,
Is he one of us?
All of those Sopranos.
Is he a friend of ours?
You basically got to sort of chop someone's arm off to prove that you're in the gang.
Yeah. It is mad.
But it's
isn't
like
it?
Jordan Peterson, obviously, who was massively, caused a massive backlash when he suggested that, that we shouldn't compel speech when it came to misgendering, and there was all this massive uproar, and he was, the left's public enemy number one.
Oh, he was more or less chased into the darkness, wasn't
and all he was saying is, if you ask me to say, a pronoun, I probably will, just go along with it to be polite.
Yes.
But I don't want the state compelling me to say he, him, or whatever, when, or they, them. It's just not a job for the state to do.
Yes.
And it's not the job of University of Edinburgh either.
No.
I know that's not the state getting involved, but they shouldn't be telling their lecturers what they can and cannot say.
No.
And the list goes on, by the way. There's so many things they're not allowed to say.
Well, we had that school, didn't we, recently, where the head teacher told the other teachers that they couldn't say good morning, boys and girls anymore, because that was in some way an insult to everybody. It's crazy.
So it's really just the wider thing, isn't it? A lot of people who go into education want to re-educate rather than teach.
But what fixes this is one word, which is freedom.
Yes.
Just let people decide what they call themselves, what they call each other, each to their own.
But no, that's not
Well,
simple.
exactly.
That's oversimplifying it, because if you say to me, I wish for you to refer to me as Samantha, why should I?
Well,
That's not
funnily
actually your
enough,
name.
I'm entitled. For example, if somebody is trans and they identify as a woman, then I acknowledge that, and it's like, congratulations, and you are a woman.
Really?
That's it. But that's a decision I have made. I don't have to recognise them as a woman. It's my choice,
Right,
and I
but
cannot lose
that's
my
point.
job
but the rule
because
is,
I haven't.
Yes, but the rule is now that you must recognise them as whatever they say.
That's not free.
And that's not freedom, is it?
No, it isn't. And
Because-
it's actually not tolerance either, because actually, if you respect someone else's gender and, their orientation, it's actually more flattering if you've chosen to respect that and to be tolerant. And it's a proactive. But if you've been forced to by the stakes, you're afraid to lose your job, that's hardly tolerance,
I mean,
is it?
I would have thought,
Well,
surely...
no, it's not. You can't censor your way to tolerance.
There you go.
I believe.
Can people just not be polite? Would that not be the answer?
Yeah.
And
I don't know,
just
can
treat
they, Mike?
people... Sorry? It's just an idea. I'd never catch on, obviously.
I remember years
Or can
ago.
people just take a joke as well?
Well, there is that.
But I remember years ago in a family friend that transitioned, and this was in the 80s, very ahead of their time. And it was just a case of, Uncle Steve is Auntie Louise now.
It's no big deal.
And that was it. You're like, okay, fair
that's
enough.
Fine. It's no big deal.
There didn't need to be a campaign.
They didn't
I
need to
don't
issue a
remember
press
anyone
release.
getting cross about it.
Or put posters up on the trees, or anything like that, like they do when they lose a cat. Why would you? It's not anybody's business anyway.
But anyway, as a last thing, they're also asking lecturers to actively acknowledge their cisgender privilege.
Huh?
So,
See, I don't even know what that means.
You don't know cisgender?
Well, I don't know what cisgender privilege
So
is.
that's cisgender is someone who's been born in the body that they identify as.
Right.
As the gender. So if you were
So
born
that
a
would be
man
me.
and you identify as a man,
So I'm
then
cisgender then.
you
am
are,
I?
yes. So you have white, male,
How exciting.
and now cisgender
Okay.
privilege.
So I
To add
have
to your
white male
list
cisgender privilege.
of
Yeah,
things
okay.
to feel guilty about.
Well, luckily I don't feel
you.
guilt because I went to Catholic school and they beat it out of me. They were trying to make me feel guilty about everything, including the sins of the Father and the sins of our Lord and all of that. So now I don't feel guilty at all.
All of
They did a
this
great job.
is telling people what to think and how to live their lives. I think it's a strong word, but I think it's actually abusive.
Yeah.
I think citizens are now being abused, brainwashed, and gaslit.
People are frightened.
by these pressure
Gaslit
groups.
is the crucial point, I think.
People are frightened.
They
I mean,
really
I
are.
speak to people quite a lot who say to me, I really love your show, Mike, but I can't admit to my friends that I do.
Yeah.
And I can't admit to them that I listen to it because they also just think you're this rabid maniac. Now that I'll be able to tell them I'm cisgender, presumably that might change things because people won't be ashamed anymore. Or is it bad to be cisgender?
No, you have the privilege, so therefore
But
it's
is it a bad thing or a
By
good
the way,
thing?
I mean, I
It's a
think.
bad thing.
Is it?
To acknowledge
Yeah.
your privilege is a good
Do
thing.
you know what
I
this
see.
also does? This pushes us further away from the truth, which is why, coming back to COVID, I don't believe those opinion polls where people say that they support face masks and lockdowns. I think that they've been phoned up or they've been stopped in the street by someone in a cagoule and they want to look like a nice person. And they've
Yes, it's
basically,
true.
they've sort of gone, yes, no,
Yeah,
we
of
should
course.
definitely, if you're going to save lives, we
Yeah.
definitely should do. But I
Well,
think
also
that
they get asked the
privately
question-
people think something quite
Yeah, they
different.
always preface
No,
the
but also
question
that's
with
that's
that.
how they ask the question. Now they go, if you would you like to save more lives by continuing the lockdown? You're not going to say no, are you?
That's
Or it'd be
exactly
like,
right.
would you go sit in that pub if you knew that you were about
Yeah.
to cause the death of someone? No, obviously not.
Yeah.
It's like these ludicrous adverts, that you might kill somebody if you go round to their house, or if
Yeah.
somebody walks past and they want to join you, you better not let them because
Those
then there'll be
have to
7
stop.
of you.
Those
I
have
mean,
to
it's
stop,
just
those
ridiculous.
adverts.
It's
Yeah,
bonkers.
you're going to get a situation where people are pretending to think things that they don't.
Yeah.
And therefore public discourse won't be in any way authentic, which sounds to
No,
me
they already
like
do.
communist China. Because in any totalitarian regime, it's well known that you have this duality within society where people have their public face and public conversations, and when they get indoors, that's when you see the real side of them. And
not
that's
in
when
Scotland,
they
then you could
talk
be in
freely.
trouble for that. You can't talk freely in Scotland indoors,
No, you
otherwise
can't.
the children will shop you to
It's
the
true.
thought police.
Yeah, they have little microphones.
Yeah, unbelievable. Anyway, we better get on. I'm going to change tack altogether here because you're both quite serious this morning with
Afraid so.
those two particular nominations. I'm going with Adrian Edmondson, formerly of the Young Ones. You might remember
Of course.
him. Was quite a funny comedian for a while. Now doesn't seem to do very much at all. Lives with Jennifer Saunders, who I believe is his wife. He sent out a tweet yesterday. Just trapped myself on a window ledge whilst cleaning the windows. I mean,
Why are you
one,
telling us?
what's he doing cleaning the windows?
Yeah.
And two, I've seen the picture, and he's basically one floor up. It looks like he lives above a pub. It looks a bit like Primrose Hill to me. It looks very nice. And he could have literally jumped from there and probably not hurt himself. It's one story, you know. Anyway, he goes, I had to ask a passerby to fetch help. The fire brigade came, a small crowd gathered, thoroughly enjoying themselves. The fire brigade were very kind and didn't snigger too much as they rescued me. How's your bank holiday going? Now, it's quite a self-effacing tweet, so I'm not going to be too hard on him. But seriously, I mean, what's he doing cleaning his own windows, right? Everybody knows you get people to do that, don't
Correct.
you? It's dangerous. I mean, and you go outside. Some people joke later that maybe it was Jennifer who actually locked him out and didn't want him to come back in, which is more than likely. So there you go. Who's your second plank?
I've got Prince Harry, who I realise is a sort of hardy perennial
He's
of
just trying
planks
to
of the
save
week.
the world.
Well, do you know the
Of course
great
he
thing
is.
about the way we've been doing it so far this year is that we keep just carrying over Harry and Meghan, because, you know, we carry one person or two people over every week. So now that you've nominated him again, I'm going to have to carry somebody else over.
I think you will.
And it might be Carrie Simmons.
But by the way, it
Simons.
just goes to show that the irritation value is not exclusive to Meghan Markle. Harry himself occupies that space quite happily, because he's been to an event called Vax Live, a pop concert featuring J-Lo and other stars. Joe Biden.
The Foo Fighters were there.
Yeah,
The Pope
correct.
apparently sent a message.
Yeah, well,
course
that's
he
right.
did.
The Pope was involved.
So now we're now dealing with, as I refer to him, the Herbert, formerly known as Prince Harry, who now thinks of himself as a sort of pop star stroke Pope-like figure, who can just go from stage to stage spreading goodwill.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
giving everybody advice on how they should be living.
Well, that's right.
I mean, Jesus.
He's flavour of the month in Los Angeles, isn't he? I
Doesn't
wonder how
surprise
long
me.
that will last. For me, Prince Harry is like Hershey's.
Well, they're all off their face on marijuana, aren't they? It's legal there, so they're all stoned.
They're all-
probably
yeah.
think, probably think he's the King of England or something.
I think so. I mean, look, he wouldn't be so popular. He wouldn't have this platform. Attending these concerts and getting a rock star reception, unless it was the titles that he has so openly rejected and vilified.
And why does he keep using it?
If
the
you're
Duke of
going to
Sussex.
beat up on your family like that, make outrageous accusations that then haven't been backed up, then you would surely want to relinquish those disgusting titles that are associated with this outrageous, horrible family.
Yes.
You'd think. But no, I'll slag off the
And
family.
also the links to colonialism as well, one would have thought.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly right. You sometimes get the offspring of famous people that can't bear their famous mum or dad, and what they do is they change their surname to their mother's maiden name or something. It's like, I'm just going to move on with my life.
Julian Lennon?
Well, he was not a great example, but it certainly has happened in the past where people have disowned their famous parents. There is one daughter of the Osbournes.
Yes.
That wasn't in the Osbournes show.
Well, not Kelly.
No,
She's the only one I know.
Because Kelly and then
didn't know this.
and then the lad, but then there's his other Osbourne daughter. She's like, I don't want any of this.
Right.
I want to be a normal person. I don't want to be famous.
Okay.
I'm not going to be an Osbourne. So,
But even that in itself is a little bit twee, isn't it? Because you're so well off and rich and
Well,
famous
you can afford to-
that you can afford to go, I don't want to be famous.
Yeah.
I'll just
Yeah.
be somebody ordinary.
I know.
In a great big house in California with a Bentley.
the big problem we have with Harry and Meghan going to the States is that we laboured under the illusion that, okay, they've gone, it's created division within the royal family, it's been a headache for the Queen, it was very unfortunate.
I think it's been great for the royal family, actually. I mean, they've never been more popular.
It's true, but certainly more talked about.
Yeah.
But the problem
And
is
the others' ratings actually gone up.
Yeah.
While theirs have gone down.
Everyone
It's
now
not
thinks
just theirs have gone
Katie,
down.
who used to be kind of thought of as a bit jumped up.
Yeah.
Because, God bless her mother was an airline stewardess.
That's true, yes.
It's just she was
Social
this
climber.
horrible social climber, middle class wannabe. She's now the queen of the royal family.
Yeah, that's right.
That
I think
picture of her in the car on the way to the funeral.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think even Prince
Very
Andrew.
elegant.
I think even Prince Andrew has enjoyed what I would call the Harry bounce.
No, he hasn't. No.
Knowing that he's not-
he was doing okay until he formed that company with the guy who was sacked from Coots Bank for sexual harassment.
Not great. Not a good
That
look.
wasn't a good look,
Not a good
really.
look. And Harry now he's like Hershey's chocolate, right? Only popular in America.
Yes, very good.
He's the one who fell in love with Meghan Markle and chose her, and some reports would suggest didn't brief her fully on what royal life was actually going to
I
be
don't
like.
believe that. I don't believe a word of that. Absolute rubbish. And also, who got to a stage with his own father, his own father wouldn't take his calls.
Yeah.
I mean,
I used to think she was the only narcissist in the pair, but it's
No,
clear
I think
that both
he's
of them
much
are.
worse.
Both of them are.
I think he's
definitely
actually
more
worse.
entitled.
Yeah, totally. I mean, to sit there with a straight face and say that he was cut off by his family when he's got 30 million in the bank and picked up 5 million last year from his dad alone.
And that
It's
was
just
what,
pathetic.
during the COVID pandemic, during
Yeah.
our worst recession since probably the Second World War.
Yeah.
Yeah, really got his finger on the
Harry,
pulse.
Prince
I
Harry.
think Prince Harry could be the winner this week.
Well, he might
You
be.
might have nailed it there. Emily, what's your second nominee?
What's my second nominee? Well, mine was going to be Boris Johnson, but
Yes.
not for the reasons that we've already suggested.
Well, he is a bit of a plank.
Pardon?
He is a bit of a plank, though,
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel sorry for nominating him a bit.
because of your traditional Tory links.
Well, no, because he's been getting such a headache from you both on the radio this past week or
You
so.
don't think he deserves it?
You know, obviously, I don't think it's great that he's been so secretive about his expenses.
It's not great. And why is he being so secretive?
It's possible that he has something to hide.
Yes.
And it's
That would
possible
be- that
that
would
he
be my
is
suggestion.
slightly arrogant and doesn't particularly like sharing the truth.
Well,
But we kind of knew that when we voted for him, and we decided that on
there's a
balance we
difference
still prefer him.
Yeah, but there's a difference between, not wanting to have your private life plastered all over the papers because you want to look after your kids, and I get all that, and that's fine. But this is not the same thing. This is not his private life. This is him living in a house which we pay for, which is part of the British sort of traditional establishment, which he's chosen in his wisdom to decorate in a way which looks pretty hideous, quite frankly. I mean, if I was getting charged that kind of money, I'd be asking for it back, I think, and I'd be asking him to come back with some IKEA stuff that looks a lot better. But this is all of his own making. I likened it last week to him being Lewis Hamilton on the sort of final lap of the Grand Prix. Miles ahead of the next car, 2 laps back, and then suddenly he gets to the last bend and just careers off for
Yeah,
no
but you
apparent
must see
reason
this all as
into
just-
the pits.
It's all just a team effort from most of the mainstream media to get him fired.
I don't
it's
think
also
so.
see-through. I don't think that many people
I don't
actually
know.
care as long as the taxpayer isn't paying for the
Yeah, but the taxpayer is paying. The taxpayer gave 60,000 towards it, and that still wasn't enough. So he had to get even more money to satisfy the mad, crazed Carrie, who seemingly
How do you know
can't.
it wasn't him that wanted the...
Well, have you taken a look at what he looks like? I mean, this is not a guy that
Just
it
cares.
was not him.
just
It
look
was
at
not
his
him.
jogging
I was told there used to be, when he was editor of the Spectator, there used to be a very scruffy sofa, shall we say, in an area where it was quite well used, I'm
right.
told, if you know what I mean. And nobody ever bothered that they needed to recover it or fix it or get a new sofa. This is not a guy who cares about soft furnishings. I really don't think he does. But he does care about who actually finds out who gave him the money. And that's the problem.
He's soft in the head.
Yeah, he should have just come out and said,
And it's not a story. I mean, he's making it a story by not telling us.
I think. What bothers me about this is that when you're Prime Minister, your life is problems 24/7.
Yeah.
That's just your job is problems. That's what you do for a living. And this is a problem that is entirely self-inflicted. The rumours are that advisors were concerned about this issue and about the compromising nature of the cost of refurbishment, who paid, in February of last year. This doesn't need to be a drama that actually played out the way
But
it
don't you think
did.
it's quite interesting that it came immediately after all the claims of sleaze in other areas?
Yes.
It's obviously part of a continuum.
Well,
to try
because they
and
went for
fired.
Cummings, right? And Cummings decided to retaliate, and it was never a good idea to go for Cummings. They should have known better.
Anyway, the reason why
But
I think
so
he's
why are
blank-
you
this has been
nominating
hijacked slightly.
It has.
Sorry.
Naughty.
The reason why I wanted him to be my plank of the week was because he's hired Neil O'Brien
Oh, God.
as his levelling up advisor.
Yes.
And that irked me quite a bit because Neil O'Brien is, of course, the MP who I know him only for the fact that he's essentially been in charge of a witch hunt among any people who, including a lot of talk radio
Yes.
presenters, for sort of, I guess, wrongthink when it comes to lockdowns.
Well, he basically coined the term COVID denier.
Yes, he did. He coined it, and he also founded this website called COVID FAQ, which sort of reads a bit like the Byline Times in that it seems to be totally, conspiratorial and sort of a witch hunt for anyone who might be slightly lockdown skeptical.
Yes, and
and
also people who have legitimate questions about the efficacy of various bits of government policy.
Well,
He's one of
exactly.
the most unpopular MPs in the history of MPs. He's known, is he not, as Matt Hancock's house elf, and apparently he's so close to Matt Hancock that nobody else can get anywhere near him. And this is clearly some kind of reward. But also, as you say, Emily, what a stupid appointment to make. And also, what does it even mean, Minister for Levelling Up?
Also-
Levelling up what?
Yeah, from what I know, and I might be wrong on this, but I think his career history is just running a think tank, a Westminster think
I'm told
tank.
he worked with David Cameron as an advisor in some way, and
Yeah.
also
But
Theresa
But do we
May.
not
Very
want?
much
Do
a
we not
career
want? Do
politician.
we
Yeah.
not want a focus for that important levelling up agenda, which swept the Prime Minister to power in December 2019? I mean, levelling up was one of the big things, wasn't
no.
it? Get Brexit
No,
done,
but Brexit was the thing that got him in. That's
and
really
levelling
what-
up with
To
the
be
North.
honest, I think levelling up
I
as
don't think so.
a
It's kind of an insult, isn't it? I mean, they're basically saying to people
I think
in
it's
the
what
north
people
of
felt
England,
investment in
don't you
their
want to
area.
be like us? Do you want to be clever and
the
smart like
government
we
have
Londoners?
always tried to pump money into areas of the
Liverpool has
country
been
that
the
aren't doing well, and it
beneficiary
just
of
doesn't
more
work.
of more public money than almost any area in the country, right? And nothing's really changed.
Levelling
because
up is a scam.
Levelling up is a scam.
That's
Totally
not
Just
true.
cut taxes.
I mean, look at Radio 5 Live moving to Manchester and the BBC, moving people around the country. Nothing's changed. Nothing's happened. It hasn't regenerated. All they've got now is Salford Quays, which is a bit like Canary Wharf without the people.
We need to sort
You
out
know?
the cost of housing and cut taxes, and that will go further than any
Exactly.
pumping
Well
money
said.
into some like courtyard or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, let's have a sort of outdoor, indoor, amphitheatre where plays can be put on.
This is what Mark
You know?
wants, though. Wouldn't it be romantic?
Of course.
Yeah, let's level up, Gateshead by putting an amphitheatre in the middle of it.
Look, communities always want inward investment, and they were promised infrastructure. They were
No, they
promised
want
more
jobs.
more buses.
They want jobs. They want to pay less tax.
Yeah.
They'd be able to do it themselves if they didn't have the government intervening every.
Yeah.
Well, this
second
was
of
the
their
big. This
lives.
was the big Boris sell, and it went very well because the whole of the north of England turned blue, and if he doesn't deliver on that agenda, they won't have him back.
No, it'd be interesting to see what happens.
People aren't
actually.
stupid.
No, they're really not. They're really not, and they don't like to be talked down to either, and told that they're somehow not as worthy as people in the south. So we have to give you special dispensation because you're a northerner. I mean, that's not.
I
what
think
they
every
want to hear.
every community wants more money. And
Yeah.
the message of levelling up is we're going to invest properly in the north, and that really helped to get Boris elected.
Yeah, except they're not, and they haven't. So
Well, that's a good point.
No, I think it was
this
just
bloke
Brexit.
O'Brien, or Knob for short, as I like to call him, isn't going to make any difference. Well, those are his initials. I mean,
Just being
can't tell a lie.
just being accurate.
That's what his friends call him. All right, Nobby. Now, listen, I'm going to go for an old favourite of mine, Gary Lineker, Gaza, who's a lovely man, blocked me on Twitter many, many years ago, doesn't like me at all, has attacked me actually on Twitter as well, and has had a go at me several times. But you might remember this weekend was the end of racism because everyone involved in football decided not to tweet out about anything at all. Everyone involved in the Premier League and every other football league, I think also quite a few media organisations decided that they're not going to tweet. 4-day boycott of Twitter in order to stop racism, right? Now, it's come and gone, so I'm assuming racism has now disappeared as well. I don't know whether you can tell me what the result of that would be. But unfortunately, poor old Gary Lineker, who's an inveterate Twitterer, right? And this was drawn to my attention by somebody else because since he's blocked me, I can't actually see what he's tweeted. But you know what he's like, and he's still absolutely kind of clings to this idea that he can say what he likes, even though the BBC have said that you're not really supposed to have political opinions, although he apparently still can. There was a tweet put out by a woman called Janie Godley, who's quite a funny comedian, actually. You probably know.
Glasgow-based.
Glasgow-based. I've known her many years.
Nice
a bit
lady.
left-wing, but very nice woman. But she put out a tweet about Lawrence Fox, who, as you know, is a candidate for the mayor's election, and she's just had a picture of him and it said, "Who says right-wing comedy is dead?" Okay. Now, I'm sure even Lawrence Fox probably thought that was quite funny. Problem is, for Gary Lineker, at about 7:30 on Saturday night, only sort of a day and a half into the boycott, decided to tweet Janie Godley.
Oh dear.
And you just think, he's obviously forgotten
Correct.
that he's in the midst of this, massive anti-racism campaign, and he put one of your funniest voiceovers yet to her with a laughing emoji. Then obviously realised when people started going, Gary, you're supposed to be not on Twitter this weekend, remember? You promised that you'd help stop racism by not tweeting. And so he then, about an hour later, had to remove the tweet.
Did he delete it?
And he deleted it and then didn't tweet again.
Didn't Gary
The damage
Lineker
is
also pop into his shop without a face mask after having
did.
been lecturing people about
Yes,
face masks?
he
And it's
did.
just rank hypocrisy.
This is the guy who, when I did a bit of a rant about that on Talk Radio, that was when he came on and attacked me and said that, this bloke's nice, isn't he? And then just went on some rant about,
and by the
how
way,
horrible it all
perhaps he
was.
wanted to not wear a mask as a kind of debating point. Which is something
He claims he forgot.
I'm comfortable with people wanting to debate face coverings in as provocative a manner as they so wish. But what you can't do is have it both ways and lecture people and finger wag about a face covering and then not wear one yourself.
No, exactly. And also, who forgets to put it on? I mean, I don't know anyone
No.
who's forgotten that they're supposed to wear a mask at a shop.
Yeah.
This is the thing.
You could go into a shop and not wear one, by all means, but don't pretend that you've forgotten you were supposed to.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can be as nasty a person in your private life or, in your work life or whatever, but as long as you say the right thing at the right moment, like Prince Harry and Meghan, say the right woke virtue signalling thing, you were right in the eyes of the
In the eyes of the
media
wokerati.
and the wokerati who
Yes, exactly
who are
right.
there
So
to
anyway,
stay
so
by
Gary
those
Lineker's
things.
in there for me, not for the first
Good
time.
one.
And, who's your third, Mark?
I've got Mr. Justice Julian Knowles.
Oh,
Are you
yes.
familiar with him?
I'm not familiar with that name.
Well,
But
he
I'm
is...
not, the Queen's Bench Division has not been known to me for many years. I used to know them all off by heart.
No, this is the High Court who have ruled against Hugh Osmond, the former, founder of Punch Taverns, one of the biggest pub chains in the country, who identified there was no scientific justification for hospitality having to wait until the 17th of May to reopen. The High Court have said no, this rule will stand, and the law, as far as I'm concerned, is an ass.
The law?
The
law is an ass.
I
No,
mean,
it
it's
is.
just ridiculous.
Well, the thing I don't understand about this case is that first it was delayed, then it was kind of postponed, and then the government were told they had to come up with some evidence, and then the sort of solution to the case and the verdict came out this morning after a bank holiday Monday, after the government having not been able to provide any evidence. I'm not quite sure how they won.
Oh, I don't know either, and we've seen the same issue with children in secondary schools as young as 11 wearing face coverings all day long, and there was a legal case action by Law or Fiction to actually pursue the Department of Education on that one and demonstrate that they're justified and that they work. Unfortunately, it seems like the judiciary is just not going to be there to help, to call the government to account.
No, and it seems unfortunate that everybody in every single sort of arm of the establishment is carrying on with this narrative and just nodding sagely as if everything is only down to one particular opinion. Well, of course you must wear a mask. Of course you must socially distance.
Yeah.
When I spoke to a doctor this morning who said there's no evidence actually that either of those things makes any difference.
I think it's just getting cruel now. I was reading on Twitter. I think it was Belinda DeLucy who tweeted out that she
about
that
the
her
exams,
daughter was
yeah.
going to have to wear a mask for the entirety of her GCSE examinations. There's already social distancing in exam halls, obviously, so you can't cheat. Why on earth are we inflicting that on young children? And people say, oh, it's not a big deal. My kid was okay to wear one. But your kid isn't everyone. Not everyone's kid.
Also, it is a big
do
deal.
That. I think it's a massive deal.
I say this to anyone who says it's not a big deal. You wear a mask for 7 hours.
And you're nervous.
Also, wear it for 7 hours.
Sweaty face.
Horrible.
You get
Thank
ill.
you. That's not very nice. But the thing is, it's the
It's
lights.
time for
It's
insults.
It's the lights. No, but I mean, one of my kids didn't want to wear the mask, doesn't wear it. Now, if it was meant to be so dangerous for you not to wear a mask, then how is he allowed to go to school without wearing
And
it?
also, how is it that children didn't wear a mask for months and months of the pandemic
Right.
at school?
Right.
Have you had to
And
write
how is
him
it?
a note?
And how is it that we still have not yet to see the so-called peak, the little spike that we were going to see when schools went back?
No evidence that,
None of it's happening.
that they stopped transmission, but also no evaluation of any potential impacts on a child, mentally or physically, on the wearing of a mask. And this is why, I've argued vociferously since early in the pandemic that these measures that are not definitively effective but might work must be discretionary.
Yeah.
So you can say to people, that's fine, wear a mask if you want to. The vaccine
Or if
is
you're
something I've
particularly ugly.
welcomed. I've welcomed the vaccine because it clearly works. It's clearly effective. And that's why I can get behind that. I can't order people to wear masks because the data just doesn't stack up.
We already know that for young children, there's hideous research saying that, it's obvious why this would be the case, but surprisingly enough, small children are having problem with their communication skills.
Really?
Possibly because they've been seeing people wearing masks the entirety and they haven't been to
Right.
school.
I know.
And this is like newsflash breaking news on the BBC News website. What are we going to do about this? Maybe don't force them to wear masks during their
There's an
GCSE
idea.
exams.
There is an idea. Well, listen.
Although this was toddlers.
Yeah, but still, the whole thing's ridiculous. We're running out of time rapidly, you guys, so let's have your third
Yes,
one,
I'll
Emily.
squeeze in my third. We
Yeah,
don't
go
have
on.
to spend too much time on her. It's Jameela Jamil.
Yes.
Who, do you know who
I'd
Jameela
forgotten all
Jamil
about
is?
her.
Actress from The Good Life?
She is an actress. She's also an activist and self-proclaimed feminist. Obviously, she has she, her in her pronouns.
She does. And she used to always get into arguments with Piers Morgan, didn't she? Is that the same
Yeah.
one?
Oh, yeah. She's very much known as a sort of woke, female power, yes queen kind of girl.
Right.
That, lots of people are adoring of. Anyway, I don't know if you saw, but Caitlyn Jenner, who obviously is the former Olympian, that come reality star, come now transgender woman,
yes,
was caught by
So is that
a
he,
reporter.
she, her?
Yes.
Right. Sorry, just
Ask
checking.
such a thing, Mike.
Sorry.
Do keep up, Mike.
I'm trying to. It's confusing for me.
Anyway, she was caught. Not Jameela, Caitlyn was caught. Going on her coffee run, and they asked her. And a reporter asked, "Oh, what do you make of sort of trans women being in women's sports?"
Yes.
And he said, she said a very reasonable response, saying, I think this is something we need to look at. It's not very fair, and they shouldn't be allowed for whatever reason. Very reasonable, very reasonable. Anyway, Jameela Jamil gets straight on this because she likes to attack anyone that could be deemed transphobic in any way at all. Gets on the case and starts, tweeting to her 1 million followers about how this is transphobic and how it's awful that this trans woman who can claim to be an ally and whatever when she's, saying such things as trans women can't, essentially biological men.
So this is again going back to this argument that if you're a trans woman, you all have to think the same way.
Yes, essentially.
Which is madness,
essentially.
Isn't it?
And what was most plankish about this was that she chose to make a collage of pictures showing male athletes, biologically male athletes, basketball players,
him.
and she showed, tall ones next to short ones, different sizes, and I guess the idea was to say that, men of different sizes play against each other. Why can't men play with why can't women play with biological men if they've transitioned? I'm not exactly sure what she was saying there.
I don't think she knows much about basketball, does she?
But the pictures were of biological men.
Yes.
I mean, essentially they all had penises.
Right.
So her point was sort of lost on me. But this sort
it's
of
also
vacuous virtue signalling.
It's kind of complicating something. It's like inventing something so that you can have a row about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, quite.
I mean, I don't know if there are any female basketball players currently playing in the male leagues. I suspect there are not, having transitioned that way.
But it's always the other way around, isn't it?
It seems to be. And certainly what we've seen is stories about, men who are biological men transitioning to women and playing in a sport which is for women and beating them hands down. Like there's a weightlifter, I think, there's a wrestler, and it does seem, and if you're actually going to ask about sport and you ask somebody who's won an Olympic medal, that's probably quite a good opinion, isn't it?
And we're a bit more sensible in this country than in the US, although we're always a couple of years behind. In the US, you will have biological men who have transitioned sat next to a female athlete who's about half the size and obviously doesn't have the same hormone makeup, and they're arguing, oh, it's totally fair for me to be, wrestling against you or whatever. It's just madness.
You seem to have won hands down. It's strange, isn't it? Well, my third one is going to be Line of Duty, and I know that you'll probably both moan and groan about this, but you cannot escape, unfortunately, this week. Line of Duty has been the kind of main event. If it wasn't for Bill Gates getting divorced, and if it wasn't for Prince Harry, this would have been the main story of the entire week. Because amazingly, everybody said how awful it was, but it ended up being a record-breaking Sunday night television viewing opportunity at the end. And everybody now seems to agree that it looks as though it got rewritten very hastily at the end, and it was a very disappointing ending, and nobody was happy. But yet they're all still talking about it. But I'm still going to make them plank of the week just because it's become such a woke show. Everybody in it has got some wokery going on. It's not like a proper police show. It's just, and because it has kind of dominated the airwaves for such a long time, this series, and now they're talking about bringing it back again. I just think, I cannot pass by the opportunity to put them in as plank of the week.
Well, it's very funny that I don't normally take too much notice of what's trending on Twitter, but the word disappointed was trending on Twitter. Yeah, because it seems like, because I'm not an aficionado of the series.
Well, I'm really not either. I mean, I'd never even seen it until last year, but in the first sort of lockdown, things got so boring.
Oh, you did a binge.
I just thought, well, this is meant to be quite good. I'll just start looking at this. And I saw like all four, I think it's 5 previous series.
Do you want your life back? Do you want those hours back?
Well, no, because I wasn't doing anything else. Okay. So it didn't really matter.
I was about to say all the audience numbers were probably the planks of the week, but then I guess, as you say,
Well, that may
People have
well
had a
be.
long time to binge.
Maybe I could change it. Audience of Line of Duty. I don't know.
But hanging on for this
Yeah.
long, even though it was clearly
Because I mean, in fact, the only
season.
reason I wasn't planning on watching it because I'm now so out of the habit of watching television when they want you to watch it, which is at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. I thought I'm not sure I want to do this, but then I thought I started watching the first one because I knew I was going to talk about it. Then I watched the second one, and I was so confused. I mean, I literally didn't know what was going on, and at the end, I still don't really know what it was about. So I've watched 6 hours of television for no good reason. Maybe
There
I'm
we
the
go.
plank.
Mike is blank of the week.
Maybe
so.
it's me, But I'm sticking with Line of Duty. I mean, I
Okay.
could make it Jed Mercurio for being so woke because he also
Well,
has
you
revealed.
could argue they fell at the last hurdle.
They fell at the last hurdle because not only was the ending changed to make it less interesting, he also did that terrible thing that all drama types do, where he's made out that the actual appointment of the guy who was H, which I'm not obviously going to say to people in case they want to watch it, he said it's some kind of allegory for Boris Johnson. Because it's
God.
somebody
And also
who's
his Twitter,
out of his depth,
Twitter
doesn't know what
bio,
he's doing.
his Twitter bio says "wear a mask," which I think is very telling.
Oh, really?
Does
Yeah,
it?
that is
Yeah.
very telling.
Still.
Shudder. Anyway, so here we are. We're nearly at the end of the show. So we've got our 9. We're going to carry over Carrie Symonds, I think, because she's still not allowing Boris. Because I bet you she's saying, don't tell him who gave us the money. I'm going to now ask you to choose the final 3.
Right.
I always
So-
forget what I've nominated.
So, yeah, if you can remember what you've nominated, why don't you tell Mark and he can pick one of yours?
Okay, it was your alma mater,
Yes.
University of Edinburgh.
Correct.
Then we had, what did we have? We had Boris Johnson for Neil O'Brien. And then we had Jameela Jamil because I just despise her.
Yes. And I went for Mr. Justice.
No, I don't
Julian
know
Knowles.
who you want. No, I don't know who you want. You've got to pick one of hers.
That's the format.
Yeah, you've forgotten,
Which
haven't
one's
you?
mine?
After a
Blanket.
year.
See, this is what happens after lockdown.
I'm
You forget.
going to go Jameela because it's an example of what we were saying earlier, which is that Jameela is not even trans herself, and yet she spends all day worrying about trans rights and how other trans people are treated, which is overreach, it's appropriation, and clearly evidence that the phone's not ringing.
And she's a feminist who doesn't care about women's rights.
Wow.
And that's
Powerful.
also
So I'm
very
going to go
good.
Jameela for me.
Okay, so now you can give me your 3.
Right, I've got Mr. Justice, let's go in the order. Dominic Raab, Foreign
Yes.
Secretary.
Yes.
Prince Harry and Mr. Justice Julian Knowles.
Do you know, when I put Dominic Raab's name in here, it also corrects to Dominic Arab. How weird is that?
Well, that's how he identifies privately.
Yeah, see, anyway, it's not him. I think I'm going to go with Prince Harry.
I was hoping
Because
you'd
Prince
say that.
Harry has to be.
I think so.
I think he may even win the whole thing, the whole shoot. So, my 3, Gary Lineker, Adrian Edmondson, and Line of Duty. They're all a
I'm
bit...
going to go with Adrian Edmondson.
Yes,
Just because, he created his own comedy sketch.
he really did, didn't he? And it was a pretty stupid thing to do. And also, I mean, I suppose he decided he had to tweet about it, otherwise somebody else would have done. Because he was out there for a while, I think. And the fire brigade turning up outside your house is one of those things that you can't
And how
really
many
hide.
people that have superglued themselves to a tree didn't get free because of him?
Well, exactly right. How many
ma-
cats didn't get
Oh,
rescued?
Tell me at the cats.
I mean, goodness me. Although, do you know, there's been talk over the weekend of fire engines appearing at people's houses and going in, knocking on the door, and fire officers asking people if they've been vaccinated, and if not, why not?
Brilliant.
Now, I
Surely
don't know
not.
if that's the truth. I've seen
Is that a
anecdotal
preview
evidence
of next
only.
week's Planks of the Week?
What, the fire brigade?
Yeah.
We can't call them that anymore, can we? I used to have American friends who fell about laughing.
Why can't you call them that?
Well, they're now the fire service, in the same way that the
Brigade's
police...
a bit.
Brigade gendered.
Well, it's a bit military.
Well, I know. I think it's because I used to have American friends. They'd be like, when I was living there, they'd be like, "Go tell them what do you call the fire people?" And I was like, "The fire brigade." They don't fall about laughing
Love
because
it.
it just sounds so bad. It's so
I think it
British.
sounds nice.
I think the fire brigade's
You
good.
don't
But
have to get rid of everything that's good. Don't you?
I know. Right. So, so we have then Adrian Edmondson. We have Prince Harry,
Yes,
and then
we
we
do.
have Jameela. So we have to choose. Given that we don't want to be seen to be guilty of misogyny,
Yeah.
we probably shouldn't pick Jameela, should we?
Perhaps not. And
No.
then Adrian Edmondson has done more good in his life than bad, hasn't he?
He has, and I mean it's kind of second division plankery. It's not
Yeah.
massive plankery, is it?
It's
I
the
think
kind
it's
of
gonna-
plankery
it's
we
gonna
could
be-
all be guilty of.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like it's the ginger idiot, doesn't it?
I'm afraid so. Yep. Although I'm not sure you can call him that because that might be gingerist.
I think I'm okay.
Although you're all right, aren't you? I've just realised that you can say it. fantastic. So it is, in fact. So Jameela coming in second.
Yep.
Adrian Edmondson third for locking himself out of his own house by the window, not by the door. So Prince Herbert, formerly known as Harry, you've won Plank of the Week again. Congratulations. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.